So scanning the length and breadth of the country, giving us those updates in terms of what's happening in Bulawayo. Mzwandile, a very good morning to you. Talk to us about the final day of campaigning. We do understand the big last campaign rally is taking place at the National Sports Stadium out in Harare. We've just spoken to Peter Ndoro and Crisalda Lewis. There, ZANU-PF and MDC are currently holding their final election rallies.
Indeed, Alicia, everyone, I think, thinks the only action that is happening is in Harare. Of course, because there are two main parties that are contesting, that are holding their final rallies there in Harare. But I can tell you now, Alicia, that out of the two candidates that people talk about, which is Nelson Chamisa and President Emmerson Mnangagwa, there are 20 other candidates who are running to be president. And one of those candidates is Thokozani Kupe. You remember Thokozani Kupe had a bitter struggle for leadership for the MDC alliance, resulting in Chamisa getting the position and of course MD Kupe then getting kicked out. And then what she did was that she then stuck to the name MDC-T. So she is running as a candidate for the MDC-T, which is a splinter from the bigger MDC alliance that we are seeing contesting these elections. So what she is doing here in Bulawayo is that she is also having her final rally to really make that clarion call to the people of Zimbabwe that she is the right candidate for this country. You'd remember the significance of this place, Alicia. A few weeks ago, President Emmerson Mnangagwa survived an assassination attempt when that bomb exploded immediately after he had addressed the masses. So it's a very interesting place, this one. But with me is the chairperson of one of the wards here in Bulawayo, who supports MDC-T under the leadership of Thokozani Kupe and Nkosana Mlojwa. And Nkosana, are you confident that you will pull it through despite the fact that people think the race is between Mnangagwa and Chamisa?
Yes, I'm confident. Thokozani Kupe will make it.
So what makes you so confident, given that perhaps she may not be drawing crowds that we are seeing elsewhere?
She is not new in politics. He has been with the track for a long time, and he was working closely with the late President Morgan Tsvangirai, and is the one who is leading the rightful party. And we are confident because we are just behind him. We are supporting him, and we hope he will pull through.
But don't you think this party, MDC-T, running on its own from the rest of the MDC alliance, is it not going to split the vote, perhaps handing another victory to ZANU-PF?
People of Zimbabwe are tired of ZANU-PF. Yes, there is this group of Chamisa, but we are not afraid of them. Though it might be, but I don't think it will affect much.
So are you confident that you'll draw bigger crowds here today?
Yes, I am. Because I'm the chairman. I know people are going to come. As you can see, people are still coming and coming. I think by 11, 12, you will be see. This place will be full.
Thank you very much, Nkosana.
Thank you, sir.
That was the chairperson of one of the wards here in Bulawayo, Alicia, Nkosana Mlojwa. So basically saying the MDC-T that is being led by Thokozani Kupe is the rightful one, and he is confident that she will really win this election. Of course, the focus is on the capital, because that's where candidates who are expected to win these elections are gathering today. But it will be very interesting, Alicia, to see as the day progresses what exactly will happen.
All right, and Mzwandile, I mean, while we're talking about leaders, we've seen quite an influx of Zimbabweans that were in the diaspora, leaving the diaspora to go to Zimbabwe to make that all-important mark in the elections come Monday. Tell us about their thoughts and feelings. Do they feel that this will finally be a free and fair election?
Alicia, if there's one thing that is very interesting about this election from just about everyone we have been speaking to, whether it's ZANU-PF or MDC or even some of these new political parties that has just formed, was that this has been the most peaceful election. So people have been able to express their views without any intimidation from whoever. For example, Bulawayo is a stronghold of the opposition, but we saw yesterday, Alicia, ZANU-PF in the city center campaigning, and nobody was disrupting them. So it does show really that perhaps this country is really looking for a new beginning. So people are excited, and we're even able to speak to some of the people actually coming from South Africa saying, no, we've come here for the couple of days because we want to make a difference in our country. We can't stand aside and look when we have the opportunity to build this country. So that is why you see some of these people coming here to say they want really to make a difference.
All right, and Mzwandile, speaking of a new beginning, I mean, there's also been wide calls by Zimbabweans that they really want younger leadership, making that in relation to the current Chamisa versus Mnangagwa, saying they need to hand over the baton to the new leaders.
Alicia, that debate is quite interesting. You know, we have had the opportunity of speaking to various people actually saying, so would you rather trust Mnangagwa versus Chamisa? I can tell you the opinions are varied. So some people feel President Mnangagwa is experienced enough to be able to deal with these challenges facing the country. Some are even saying the fact that he's been there, so that gives him a unique position to allow him really to deal with issues perhaps he may not have agreed with, but the fact of the matter is that he was not in charge, then someone else was in charge. But of course, there's that chorus again which says it's time for younger leaders like Chamisa, because this country needs new ideas, new vision. So perhaps someone like him would be able really to do that. Of course, that also is perhaps countered by those who say he is still immature.
And Mzwandile, while we're talking about that, I mean, how involved and maybe knowledgeable are the young people of Zimbabwe when it comes to who they're voting for and why they're voting, about elections in general?
Alicia, if there's one thing you cannot take away from the Zimbabweans, regardless of their difficulties, be it politically or economically, is their level of education. This country is well educated. So as a result, when you meet people, ordinary people, it doesn't have to be someone high up there. Ordinary people, they are able to articulate their views quite clearly. So as we're speaking to various people doing the vox pops, people are very clear. Some people are saying, well, maybe I'm still undecided, not because they don't know. They know exactly what they want. It's a question of really choosing the best candidate. So people in Zimbabwe, you can see that back in the 80s, there was a lot of investment in education, so they're quite aware of what's happening. So that is why whatever choice they are making, so they would know exactly what they're doing. Yes, there are those, Alicia, who perhaps are skeptical in terms of the credibility of the elections, because you'd hear there's been some issues, others complaining to say, where were the ballot papers printed from, and stuff like that. But in terms of what exactly is happening, they know very well. It doesn't have to be someone very high up. Even ordinary people from the rural areas, they are very well versed with the situation here in their country.
All right, and Mzwandile, what's the general consensus on the street there? Any word on who the Mugabes are actually lobbying for during this election?
Though President Mugabe is out of the picture here, and it's very interesting that not many people are really saying so much about President Mugabe, except this morning when we saw the headlines from Chamisa, the local newspapers. Basically, Chamisa proclaims that President Mugabe has endorsed me. And of course, Chamisa knows that the there's an element of unhappiness from the ZANU-PF people who feel the way Mugabe was removed from power was not fair.
Absolutely.
So I think he's trying to play onto that one. And the fact that Mugabe has not come out publicly to say he supports ZANU-PF, and I think that's what he's trying to use. As for ZANU-PF, I think they've made sure that they stay clear of the issues of involving former President Robert Mugabe. So yes, it's anybody's guess who is going to vote for. As you heard, I think about a month or so ago, when the SABC interviewed him, we did put that question to him if he was still a member of ZANU-PF. In his own, he said, well, they kicked me out, so I'm no longer a member. So if he himself says he is no longer a member, and then someone like Chamisa comes out and says, President Mugabe has endorsed me, so you can see that he may not necessarily vote for ZANU-PF. But as we say, as we know, the vote is a secret, so we don't know who he will vote for.
Okay, and Mzwandile, just on a quick one, I mean, have you had any chance to talk to the election observers, and what are their feelings about the state of readiness ahead of Monday's poll? And of course, being today the last day of campaigning, has there been any reports of any threats of violence in any of the areas in and around where you are in Bulawayo?
If there is unanimity on this issue, is that this election will be a peaceful election. The process towards it has been very peaceful, violent-free. So the few observers that we've spoken to, even the analysts, they have been saying, well, the only issue perhaps will be the credibility of the election itself, but the process towards it has been very peaceful.
All right, Mzwandile, let's leave it there. We're going to try and get in touch base with you much later on. That is Mzwandile Mbeje, live to us all the way in Bulawayo in Zimbabwe. As of course, the last day of campaigning is currently taking place ahead of Monday's historical polls.